Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Richard Sachs, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College in beautiful southeastern Ohio. And today I am pleased to welcome again to the show two of my favorite people from the 740 area code, and really anywhere. To my immediate right, I have Jake Bapst, who's a retired administrator and instructor from our university, and he's currently serving as the university archivist. And next to him, as I'm sure you know, is Dr. Ivan Tribe, a professor emeritus of history here, who's authored over a dozen books, and we've had him on the show before.
This is our third appearance.
This is your third appearance.
Do we have to pay rent if we come again?
No, not at all, but
Okay,
we might
good.
have to put you on payroll. So what they've just come out with is a beautiful text called Beryl Halley, The Life and Follies of a Ziegfield Beauty, 1897 to 1988. We're going to talk about that book today. But beforehand, I want to talk about the last two books that they've been on the show for. Back to 2015, when they came out with West Virginia's traditional country music. And we can hold that up there. For those of you who don't live in southeastern Ohio or along the Ohio River Valley, one of the wonderful things about Sunday afternoon, if you have a radio that has FM, is Dr. Tribe and his wife Deanna do a country music show on WUOB, and again, WUOB has multiple repeater stations throughout southeastern Ohio, so I can be anywhere from like Lancaster to New Concord to Marietta, and I can hear Ivan, and it's phenomenal because he'll talk about a song and he'll say it was just first played in Wheeling, West Virginia in 1939, and these guys did it in 1944, and it first went to record in 1951. So his knowledge is literally encyclopedic, and that's an extraordinary book. Then about 2 years ago, they updated the college history with this history of University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College, which is an excellent book. I guess the only complaint I would have at this point is there's a departed president who has a major role in the final chapter, and I guess maybe...
She made the book possible.
Okay, okay. Well,
She made the new book possible also.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll let that go then. Okay. And then the current book that we're talking about now, Beryl Halley. And again, I have not yet read the book, although I was just gifted a copy and I will read this. But again, Beryl was born in this area. Did she actually go to Gallia Academy High School?
No, technically,
Okay.
she was born in Bladen in 1897. If you don't know the name Bladen, if you go down Route 7, when you get to the dam,
Yeah.
the little town just on the downriver side of the dam, that's Bladen.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't think there's even a sign on Route 7 saying that.
It's called Eureka. It's now called
Oh,
Eureka.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
And
One's a suburb of the other,
Yeah,
one,
one's-
but I'm not sure which is the suburb and which.
Yeah.
Eureka's bigger, though.
yeah,
Okay.
they have a post office.
Okay.
Technically, and Beryl came here in 1907. Her parents came here to operate the boarding hall.
Okay.
And one of
At the college?
At the college.
Okay.
And at the time, Rio Grande College had a high school attached to it also.
I did not know that.
Yes, Rio Grande had a high school attached to it. There was one building, and it was a high school, and also it was the college.
And it was that beautiful building that burned down in
It was Atwood Hall,
1957?
1937.
1937,
It was in
sorry.
Atwood Hall,
Right.
4 stories with a bell tower, and her sister was 3 years older than her.
Oh, there it is.
She had a
Isn't
son.
that a beautiful
yes,
building?
that's where Allen Hall now stands.
Right.
So when you go out on the green, if you kind of get right about where in front of the stage is for graduation,
Sure.
and look towards Allen Hall, back before 1937, that's what you would have seen.
And I think Allen Hall's 1957. That's why that's
Yeah.
in my head. So that.
And that group, by the way, is the Shakespearean Literary Society,
Really?
which existed at Rio Grande for more than 50 years from its inception.
What a great story. Okay.
That's a significant picture. That is 1911 students. There's a mix of college and high school students in that. It has 2 presidents. The longest serving Rio Grande president, John M. Davis, is over in the lower left-hand corner, and up in the upper right-hand corner is Simeon Bing, the man that took over for Professor Davis, who after he served as president went back to teaching philosophy.
And just as a footnote, that's the Davis of Davis University Center, Davis Career Center?
No.
No.
This is
Okay.
a different Davis.
Okay, sorry.
No, but
There's so many Davises here, you
Right.
have to have
Yeah.
a scorecard.
Right.
to know which
Davis
is-
and Evans. Yeah. Right. Okay.
But if you look at the third row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the right is Beryl Halley. And what's interesting, standing next to her, to Beryl's right, are Eula and Nellie Williams, who are the aunts of Kay Irvin, the recently chair of the university board.
Right.
And there are some other significant things in that picture. That I've got a large picture of that in the archives, and that's probably the most significant picture in Rio Grande history, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah. Great picture. So tell us a little bit more about Beryl. So, like many of the people at Rio Grande, she was a Free Will Baptist? Or at least she was raised in a Free Will Baptist?
She was raised as Free Will Baptist.
Okay.
Because at that time, Rio Grande was associated with the Baptist Church.
Right.
And
right.
the Free Will Baptist started the place.
Yeah.
But then Beryl had a strong mind of her own. She, at the time, you could teach. She graduated from the high school, and then she had a year of college classes where she took primarily education classes. And believe it or not, we have a copy of her transcript. The records department had her transcript.
Okay, and this is before FERPA, which is 1974, which protects student records.
Yes, that's
okay.
before.
So I think we're okay.
Yeah. But she graduated from high school, took a year's worth of college classes, and then she took the test to be a teacher and went to teach in Stories Run in a one-room school up on the Meigs Gallia County border. She spent the 1917-1918 school year there. World War I was going on, so what does everybody do if you're female? Well, you join the Navy in 1918. She joined the Navy in 1918.
So she was a wave then?
Yes.
Okay.
She was
They didn't call them waves.
didn't call them waves.
They weren't
No,
called
they weren't
waves
called
of
waves.
wax.
Yeomanette was the
Yeomanette.
term.
Yes, she was
Pardon me?
a yeomanette.
Yeomanette.
Really? Like the medieval British term yeoman,
Yes,
but a
yes.
yeomanette. Wow.
So
what
she
a-
did
a
it.
female
Oh,
yeoman.
she's strikingly
The
beautiful.
picture Mike has up now is the picture that started this all. This was hanging on the wall of the archives, and on the back it says, Beryl Halley, Ziegfield girl, Rio student.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. And I'd never heard of her.
Yeah.
And I've been around some way, shape, or form since 19 long time ago. And Ivan did the first definitive history of Rio Grande. I said, "Did you ever hear of her?" She said, "No." And so from those words, it turned into a
significant book.
significant book.
Right, right. Yeah.
And we started out knowing very little about her, and it's a great story about research. And in the process, we found her son, and he lives in Austin, Texas. He was 76 when we first got in contact with him in 2017. He did not know all he knew about his mother's life before the Ziegfield Follies were that she had taught school. No, he didn't know that. He knew that she was from Ohio and he had an aunt. I said, "Did you know about your uncle?" He didn't know he had an uncle. I said, did you know your mom had been in the Navy? He didn't know. I said, "Did you know your mom had gone to Rio Grande College?" He didn't know. To Beryl Halley, her life began in 1923 when she became a member of the Ziegfield Follies.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with the Ziegfield Follies, Ziegfeld was a great showman. He, beginning about 1908, 1909, started staging these marvelous reviews featuring dozens and dozens of good-looking women.
And with the picture that's on the screen now, can we make the point too that in the 1920s, even though nowadays you go to the swimming pool and you see that much on women's legs, that was pretty racy back then, wasn't it?
Actually, I learned a lot about American history I did not
Okay.
know, which I didn't know was possible, because I've spent a lot of time researching the 1920s. But there was a tremendous amount of nudity on Broadway in the 20s.
Because this is before the production
As a matter of fact,
codes?
the picture Mike has in now
Yes,
is from
okay.
a New York newspaper in 1928, in the Sunday paper. And I've never opened my Columbus Dispatch and seen a picture like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Mike, I don't know what the next picture is, but please, I need to keep this job, okay? So make sure she has at least that many clothes on. for
You
the
might
next
have seen
picture.
it in the Sunday Star back in
you
the
may
50s.
have.
though.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because the movie production codes didn't come up till the 40s and 50s. So again,
Broadway had a code.
oh, they did.
Yes,
okay.
that Beryl helped bring about, because
Yikes.
let me back up a little bit.
Okay, sure.
She's in the Navy in 1918.
Yeah.
World War I ends. She stays. The Navy discharges her. They discharged many people as soon as World War I ended, and then they stayed on. She stayed on in Norfolk, Virginia, working. In 1921, and in the beginning of the year, she's in Norfolk, Virginia, working as a stenographer for the Navy. And in 1922, she's in a Broadway play.
Wow.
How she got there, we never have been able to determine. And to make it even more interesting, The star of the Broadway play was from Jackson, Ohio. So you had the star of the show from Jackson, Ohio. Ivan, help me. His name was
Frank Crummett.
Frank Crummett. And if you want to know who Frank Crummett is from Jackson, Ohio, when you watch Ohio State and you hear Buckeye Battle Cry, that's the man that wrote the song.
Wow.
And I like to hear that about 10 times every Saturday.
Okay.
So how she got from there, we don't know. But once she got there, a year later, she ends up with Ziegfeld, and she's one of the longest-serving Ziegfeld girls. She worked with Ziegfeld in 1923, 1924, and 1925, and 1926, and had been cast for a show in 1927 and got fired.
And that was the nudity issue?
No, the nudity issue came up. She was arrested in 1926. She was arrested along with, she opened the year in Palm Beach, Florida, in Palm Beach Nights for Ziegfeld. One year he took this Follies, gave him a different name, and took them off out of New York. She gets arrested for indecent dancing, or she was playing Eve wearing a fig leaf.
One fig leaf.
Several
fig leaves?
Some strategy.
Okay.
The fact there were other girls danced the same and dressed the same way, going through the audience, placing apples in men's laps, was never brought up. Our conclusion was it's mainly a publicity stunt. They arrested Beryl, whose name appeared. This happened about a week after she was hired. The ads after she was hired started featuring her name in great big letters, even over the stars of the show.
Interesting.
They arrested the the stage manager, and they arrested the owner of the theater. Nothing ever came of it.
She was acquitted, in fact, in court.
And the reason she was acquitted, the judge decided to make the proper ruling. He had to go see the show himself.
Wow, and there we see her name up in lights.
And that is her name in lights at the Silver Slipper, which is a notorious New York nightclub in the 20s, operated by the mob for the most part.
Sure.
But this got her fired from Ziegfeld because about the same time she was headlining at the Silver Slipper, she was in a new Ziegfeld show. And they were on the road, and she missed a performance in Boston and came back and got fired by Ziegfeld in a very public, nasty, probably publicity stunt.
Interesting.
We don't think of the 20s as being the way publicity is done now, but these people, Ziegfeld especially, and Bernard Sobel, and O. McIntyre got his start.
O. McIntyre Park, yeah.
At O. McIntyre Park, former Gallia Police newspaper writer. The archives house is the O. McIntyre exhibit. McIntyre started out with Ziegfeld as a publicist. So these people were masters of publicity.
Yeah,
And several months after the firing, Ziegfeld actually hired her back.
Yes,
So-
he hired her back.
Well, that's interesting because I hear people in show business often say, all news is good news, that it doesn't matter if bad or good things are happening about the people, it's creating talk.
No such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah, as a college administrator, there's definitely bad publicity. And if it's not positive, I don't want it going out. But
to show people,
people it's different.
At that time, not so much.
Yeah.
Of course, you got to remember this is pre-television. This is before pre-talking movies. This is radio was new.
Right.
Radio had only been around about 5 or 6 years, so recordings were new.
And by the
live shows,
late 20s, we're starting to get the
by
talkies.
the late 20s, the 20s, you have talkies and things.
Yeah.
And Beryl, she's in 3 movies, all silent films. And in 1930, she just sort of drifts out of sight. She is dancing some in nightclubs, teaching ballroom dancing. She's featured in a dance magazine. In 1933, she's working as a secretary and marries the vice president of an insurance company.
And that's in Houston.
That's in Texas. That's in New York City.
In New York.
Houston
okay.
comes later.
Okay.
And then she becomes a housewife. Her son is born in 1941. This is the cover of her first really big break. This is on the cover of Ziegfeld's sheet music for 1924, her second year with Ziegfeld.
So she's not simply a dancer to be put on the front cover of the program like that, right?
To be on the front cover of that program, you had to be a very good-looking woman.
Yeah.
As sexist as that sounds in 2019.
Sure.
There's a picture of her from about the time she got married. She got married in 33. There's a picture of her taken in 1933. That's a picture that's autographed on the back that I picked up on eBay for a few dollars.
So she's 36 years old or so in that picture?
She's
then?
39 years. Yeah, she's 36 years old.
36.
Yeah.
And in 1941, her son's born. She's living. She spent time. She was the first secretary of the Ziegfeld Girls Club, And in 1947, she divorces her husband, remarries her husband, divorces her husband again.
The same husband.
Same husband.
Oh.
And then decides for the last divorce, she puts the son in the car, drives from New York City to Reno, Nevada, to Reno, gets divorced, and goes to Canada and remarries.
Huh.
For 3 years, she and her new husband and her son stayed one step ahead of the detectives that her husband had hired, trying to find the boy. In 1952, they're living in Houston. Her second husband is in the shipping business. The detectives find her. They go to court, and it turns out the son goes, sees Dad in the summer, and her only statement was, "I'm glad that it worked out for everybody."
Wow.
And then she spends the last years of her life as a legal secretary for the third largest law firm in Houston, and dies in 1988.
And Houston's been growing for 60 years,
Yes.
so she's part of that early growth of Houston.
Mhm.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
And this picture Mike has up, this is interesting. This is, Beryl is the one on the left side of the picture. Beside her is another Ziegfeld girl. The man bending over that tin can looking affair is actually an early lie detector. That's William Marston, the man who perfected the lie detector.
Also created the comic strip character Wonder
Also
Woman.
created the comic strip Wonder Woman. One of the models, one of the women he
What
based
do you-
Wonder Woman on was Beryl Halley.
What do you
when he
know?
started out about World War I. The question was, do blondes or brunettes react more to steamy love scenes in the movies? And they were hooked up to the lie detector, and they watched a scene from the movie, and she got straps around her chest and things.
What
And
do you know?
turns out that the blondes did not react as much as the brunettes. And one of the publicity guys said, "Well, how can you tell that they're really blondes and brunettes?" And so it was all publicity.
Sure.
It was all publicity. Those people were masters of getting their names in the newspaper.
They didn't have the same joke back
In
then.
fact, Beryl got her name in the newspaper twice in Gallia County just for going to the dentist when she was a student here.
Yeah, her name appeared. Her name and her sister's name appeared, and their friend Helen Martin. Well, remind me to talk about Helen Martin here in a second. Their names always they would go from Rio Grande to they would motor to Gallipolis, go shopping, and the next day or two their names would be in the paper. That Miss Beryl Halley, Miss Cecile Halley, and Miss Helen Martin motored to Gallipolis to shop. And like Ivan said, they put it in the paper twice when she went to the dentist, and they put her name in the paper.
What do you know?
She liked
10 years later, it was the New York Daily News.
Sure.
Helen Martin is a significant Rio alum.
Yeah, tell us
She
about
ended
her.
up leaving. She married a Barrage from a Rio Grande student who went on to be a captain in World War I. They divorced in the 30s. She remarried, became a lawyer. She married again. Her last husband was Frank Eaton, a Rio Grande graduate who was the prosecuting attorney of Cabell County, who also
in West
who
Virginia?
served on
Okay.
the Rio Grande Board of Trustees. And if you've been to a Rio Grande basketball game, you have sat where the Martin House stood. Because the
Really?
Line Center occupies the space where the Martin House stood.
What do you know?
We think that in 1915-16, that Beryl may have roomed at the Martin House, Beryl and her sister.
What do you know?
Because another thing I found out, I found the cemetery where her parents are buried down at Bladen, and her dad is buried with his mother and father at the flagpole, and her mother is buried back over the backside of the hill, and her brother is not far away from her mother. I couldn't understand why they were
Sure.
separate, but they divorced in 1915. I did not know people divorced in 1915, but they were divorced, so I think that drove her wedge. There's a picture of her dad, the only picture she had. When she left Gallia County in 1918, we think she came back once to sign the will because her
Really?
dad died in 1930. Her name was on the will and it's not notarized. And the lawyer told me
And
that
she was still in New York City then.
Yes,
so it
she
wasn't
made, she
so
made a
far
quick
to
trip
come.
back.
Yeah.
And her mother went to visit her, but she and her mother had a very iffy relationship. And there's pretty good evidence that started to develop when the parents divorced in 1915. It's a fascinating story because it takes in so many angles, and it reflects American society really well in the years of 1900 to 1960, 1970. She was a very strong, She worked for Ziegfeld, and she paraded around on stage practically nude. But she was a very strong woman who did things that the women's movement, when it began in the 1960s, emulated.
That's exactly, yeah.
She joined
here's the takeaway.
she's one of the first women to ever join the Navy. She had the courage to leave little southeastern Ohio in a strict Baptist college and go and become a Ziegfeld girl, where she became internationally known. She was a devoted mother. Her son said we become friends with her son. He said you could not ask for a more devoted mother than her. She's a fascinating woman, and like I said, 6 words on the back of a picture.
Right. Well, it's fascinating to me because you brought out the point that I wanted to bring out to a contemporary audience, and that is that this woman who was born in the 19th century and who entered an area where women are we would now say objectified. We wouldn't have said that back then, but they're being objectified just for their looks. She was a strong woman. She knew where she wanted to go. She knew what she wanted to do with her life.
Yes.
And that's remarkable. And oftentimes you have the comment of, oh, you know, this is a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, she's being objectified, but the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader will say, I'm in control of my life and I'm making decisions.
Beryl was in control of her life. One of the traits of Appalachians is stubbornness. Have you noticed that, Ivan? That a lot of us Appalachians are stubborn?
Well, yeah. Known to be that on occasion.
In 1987, she is 90 years old, living in Houston, still driving a car. She always drove Buicks. She loved Buicks. She always drove Buicks, her son said. She wanted to move to a new apartment. So her son lives in Austin now, and he said, Mom, you know, his wife is Korean. He said, my wife's parents are visiting in San Diego. When I get back next week, we'll move you. Well, Beryl, all 90 years of her, decided she was going to move herself. She loads her Buick, drives across Houston traffic, goes to her new apartment. In the middle of the night, she gets up, goes to the bathroom, trips over a box and breaks her hip. This woman gets up with a broken hip and drives herself to the hospital.
Oh, my word.
And also another thing about Beryl, nobody ever knew how old she was. Her 2 husbands both thought she was at least 5 years younger than them, when actually she was older than them. Ziegfeld never really knew how old she was. She used to put on her passport she had the wrong birth date. And that even when the doctors treated her, her son said that it wasn't until he was probating his mother's will that he found out how old she actually was.
Wow.
They got the picture there with Lillian Ross.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's Lillian Ross.
Yeah.
Wow, she's famous.
Yeah.
I'll
cry tomorrow.
The Algonquin.
Yes.
The Algonquin group that met at the
Recovered
Algonquin Hotel.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
Beryl was her mentor.
Really?
When Lillian Ross started out with Ziegfeld, Beryl was her mentor and she lived with Beryl.
Huh.
And there's parts of the book talks about how Beryl straightened her out.
Yeah, she was weight problem then. She had got into alcoholism till much later.
Yeah. And that was when she's recovering alcoholic. She's with Beryl. When I'll Cry Tomorrow came out, she went back doing some singing, and that was taken at a hotel in Houston where she was appearing. And
what do you know?
That was in December 1955.
Okay.
That's Beryl's second husband. You know, he died of cirrhosis. If you look down in front of him, that's Jim McCormick, her second husband.
Oh my gosh, is that Crown Royal there or
That
something?
would be,
A bottle of
that would
whiskey.
be Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker Red. Okay. I'm not a Scotch drinker.
It's Johnny
but-
Walker Red,
okay.
and that was her son. By that time was 16, 17 years old, and basically told Jim McCormick that all you do is lay around the house and drink up Mom's money. You need to get out of here. And
Oh,
he left,
wow.
and he died. Strangely enough, both of her ex-husbands died in 1962.
Okay.
Very. I want to put a plug in for the archives. We have, we mentioned O. McIntyre, the
Yes.
archives on the 3rd floor of the Greer Museum. We house the largest O. McIntyre collection in the world. We have stuff that nobody else has. When I first made contact with her son, he said, I've got a box of Mom's stuff upstairs I've never gone through. Let me dig it out of the attic and see what's in it. He emailed me back and said, I got all kinds of stuff here. He said, I've contacted the Ziegfeld Club in New York. I'm going to send it to them. I said, well, could you send us a picture of your mom in costume or something? He said, sure. And a couple weeks later, he said, "I decided I'm going to give it all to Rio Grande because you guys you gave me my mother.
Oh,
You
that's
gave me
wonderful.
my mother's history." So Rio Grande has a
That's
large.
what you're doing in
we have
the
we have a
archives.
large
That's
collection.
wonderful.
We have one of the best collections of 1920s memorabilia you can find
Yeah.
in this area.
The
And
times-
it covers
yeah.
it. They both come. Their success came in New York City.
Well, as an American Studies professor, it's a treat for me whenever I'm up in the archives. There's always something else new and interesting. So,
Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays this semester, 10 to 2. Other hours by arrangement. You can reach me at jbapst@rio.edu or just leave a message with the switchboard. I'm sure I'd get it. Leave a message with Dave D at the bookstore.
Okay, sure. What a phenomenally interesting life, and how wonderful that the two of you, saw that little flame and thought,
Yeah.
there's got to be a story here.
It just started out as a coincidence.
Yeah.
Found it, and it got so bad that I got home one day and my wife said, "How is your affair going?" And she laughed, and I knew she was joking because I would have been dead at that point in time. I said, "What are you talking about?" She said one of her friends said, "We're worried about Jake. We think he's having an affair because he keeps talking about this woman all the time." Josie said, "She's dead. Don't worry about it." But it was
Yeah.
fascinating, without the internet, that would have been impossible.
Interesting, yeah. Well, and so many things, so many archives are being put
Yes.
online and things like that, so you have that. We're in the last minute of the show. There's so much more to say, but are there takeaway points? Again, I think for young women today to read this story and realize it's not what you do, it's who you are.
If there's a message of Beryl's life, and her son said, he said, "My mom was always herself." He said she never tried to be something she wasn't. She said she always did what she thought was right. She made up her mind and did it. And I think that's, for anybody, making up your mind and doing it and having the courage to follow your convictions and go for it is a big thing.
Well, and that story of moving herself at age 90 because she wasn't going to wait a few days for her son to come back, that is such a great story, too,
Yes.
to show she has an idea, she has her own timetable. She might be 90 years old, but darn it, that's what she's going to do. Great. Any final comments, Dr. Tribe or Jake?
No, not really. One error in the book is it has her leaving at the age of 29. She actually left at the age of 21.
Yeah.
And that was one of the typos.
Maybe that's a transcription error or
Yeah.
something for a typesetter?
We'll call it that.
Well,
Okay.
she was a yeomanette. She wasn't a crew member on a ship. She was a secretary in an office because they put all the men on cruise ships and
Sure.
had women fill in the spaces.
Richard, thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you both for
If everything
continuing.
holds up on schedule, we'll be back next year with number 4.
Okay, that sounds good. Again, Dr. Mr. Jake
Thanks
Bapst,
thanks for the
I'll give
promotion.
you an honorary doctorate maybe next year.
I've
And
been pushing for that ever since this book.
okay, well,
But the trustees haven't bought it yet.
I'm doing what I can. And of course, Dr. Ivan Tribe. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having
and
us.
please pick up a copy of this. It's a really good
It's on
read.
Amazon.
Okay, there you go. Thanks for watching. Take care. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.